This is Gene Adam, former lead singer of Iced Earth. Be sure to subscribe to Podcast and Stone, and don't forget, join our community on social media. Metal lives.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Iced Earth community, welcome to Podcast in Stone, the only podcast 100% dedicated to iced motherfucking Earth. Today I am joined, as always, with the incomparable Chuck Hoskins. Another interview, our first interview of 2019. We have the awesome Freddie Vidales from Ashes of Earth with us. Freddie, how you doing today, my friend?
Good. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm all right, yeah. It's a right horror show, mate.
Hey.
Thanks for spending time with us on a Saturday. How you doing, buddy?
Hey. No problem, guys. Good to be here.
Good. No time like the present to talk about, Freddie. I love the new album. Can you tell us about Well of Souls?
Yeah, it's our second album, and we've got 11 original tracks. We did a cover song on it. It's been about 5 years in the making for various reasons, but we finally got it out a couple months ago, and we're very happy, very proud of it, and we hope everybody gets a chance to check it out and hope they like it, and we're starting to work on the new one already.
Nice.
Album number 3 already. Can't wait.
Yep.
Hopefully sooner than 5 years.
Definitely sooner than 5 years, for sure.
Now, we like to kick it off, like, you know, back in the early days, what kind of led you to become a musician, and what was your first instrument of choice?
I think I was, I don't know, like 11 or 12, and a buddy of mine got this cheap, crappy guitar, and he just had it sitting on his bed, and I picked it up, and I started, doodling with it, whatever, and I was like, oh, it's kind of cool. And then I had a paper route, so I worked 9 months later. I managed to save about $120, went to the local flea market, picked up a guitar of my own, and kind of, spent hours and hours after school just trying to imitate what I heard from Iron Maiden and Metallica until I learned as much as I could, and I kind of took off from there. I just been playing it ever since. I haven't put it down.
Awesome. So, how did that lead to you playing bass guitar? Is it just kind of a natural progression?
It wasn't. A friend of mine, we were both in high school. We started our own metal band, and we were looking for a bass player, and we just couldn't find one. We found, guitar players falling out of the sky, but no bass players. So I said, you know what? Why don't we get these two guys in guitar, and I'll play bass. And I just didn't know what I was doing. I played it like a guitar at the time because I didn't know any better. But then after a while, I'm like, well, Steve Harris doesn't use his fingers. I'm going to, I threw the pick away, and I just started playing bass for that band. And it led into my death metal band I had after that, where I played bass and did vocals. But the whole time I was playing bass, I'm still writing the songs at home on guitar, teaching it to the guitar players, and then live I'd be playing the bass. So I've been playing guitar maybe 2 years longer than I've been playing bass.
Okay,
Are you a better guitar player or a bass player?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't mastered either instrument. There's only a few people who have, really. They tell you to have, they're full of crap. But I guess I would say equal, because I play the guitar like a guitar. I play the bass like you're supposed to play bass. That's all I do. I don't really rank them. If it sounds right to me, then I know I've done my job. That's how I look at it.
Nice.
Coolio.
So can you tell us after the death metal band, what was your had you heard of Iced Earth at that point, and what was your introduction to John and the Iced Earth camp?
I really hadn't heard of Iced Earth hardly at all until I joined the band. And that's not a slight to them. In Arizona, the people I hung out with, the bands we listened to, Iced Earth had just never come up. None of my friends had listened to them, so I wasn't exposed to them. I heard the name before, but I hadn't heard any music by him. And it wasn't until I'd gotten laid off from my job as an engineer during the housing crash back in, I don't know, 2007. I needed something to do, so I was looking around the internet and I found, Iced Earth auditioning bass players, and I'm like, wait, I've heard of these guys. But I'm like, I wonder what they sound like. And I had a buddy that I was jamming with for fun. I'm like, have you heard of Iced Earth? He's like, yeah, they're awesome. I'm like, do you have any CDs by them? And he's like, here, why? I go, oh, they're auditioning for a bass player. I go, I've heard of them. I want to see if I like them, then maybe I'll try out. And he let me a couple of CDs, and I'm like, oh, these guys are pretty good. And so I ended up going forward with the audition process. So I really wasn't familiar with them at all.
Do you remember what albums you actually was exposed to originally?
God, what was the one? It was like a double redone album where Matt did all this singing.
Days of Purgatory.
Yeah, Days of Purgatory.
Yeah, he gave me that one, and I think maybe the Dark Saga. I couldn't remember. I mean, at the time, I didn't know what the albums were called. I just saw the pictures, but I think it was those two. I mean, I think he gave me the Days of Purgatory because it had 20 songs on it. So it was a good crib notes, for me to get into it.
Nice.
So you submitted your audition. You were handpicked by the band or by John, however that worked.
Yeah.
Could you take us through the auditioning process and actually like meeting the guys for the first time and how that kind of went down?
So when I saw this happened in a couple of days when it was like a weekend when I saw the ad for open audition for Iced Earth. Called my buddy. He sent me the stuff, and on the audition announcement or whatever, it had very specific instructions. It was like, submit video of you playing 2 Iced Earth songs, submit 2 cover songs, and it said either Iron Maiden, Metallica, that kind, etc. 2 cover songs. I think one of the ones was submit a video playing with a pick, without a pick, and to a metronome. It had these very specific instructions, and I said, okay. So I listened to, I picked out a couple Iced Earth songs I wanted to try, and I picked what I thought were the hardest ones. I think the Path I Choose, I think I picked because it was the fastest, and I can't remember what the other song is. And I have the audition DVD somewhere. I'll get it out at some point and look at it. But so I picked 2 Iced Earth songs. I think I learned them, in a day because I just sat there and kept learning them. So I put a DVD together with those 2. I did Killers by Iron Maiden. I think I did Phantom of the Opera. I did some freestyle stuff that I just played, and then I played something on a metronome. And then what I also included, which wasn't asked for, is I had done some videos of myself where I couldn't find anybody to jam with. So I said, I'm just going to jam by myself. So I did videos where I'm playing both guitars, bass, and drums. And I merged them together, and that was like a year before. So I'm like, screw it, I'll include those too. So I mailed off the DVD and didn't think nothing of it. And a few months later, I was in LA for Iron Maiden's somewhere back on whatever they did, the Flight 666 movie. They were doing like a few shows in the States. So I went to LA for that one. And when I got back to the hotel room, I got this email. I'm like, hey, this is John from Iced Earth, and I'm going to be interviewing people, blah, blah, blah. Give me a call when you can. I'm like, oh, cool. And, because this was like I said, a month after I submitted it. So we talked on the phone, and, everything went well. He's really cool. And he's like, I know it's short notice, but can you get out here next Monday? It was like 6 days, out. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll make it happen. So I was living in Texas at the time. So I flew from Texas to Indianapolis. And I remember having to look up pictures of John because he was picking me up at the airport, and I needed to know what he looked like because I wasn't, you guys would probably spot him in a crowd of 1,000 people. But at the time, I was like, what's this guy look like? Okay. And then I got off the plane, and there's this guy wearing Iron Maiden sweatpants. I'm like, that's got to be him. So we met. We BS'd. He took me back to his house outside of Indianapolis, and the whole time we were just cracking jokes, and it's like I'd known the guy forever. We were just very like-minded, and I was staying there for, I think, 2 days. And basically at the end of, I don't know, maybe later that night, he basically told me I got the gig. I hadn't played one note. We were just cracking up, and he told me that, he had a feeling it would work out with me, and if it did, he wasn't going to even audition anybody else. So I was the only one he tried out, and I didn't even. It was the next day we were hanging out. He's like, "Well, you brought 2 basses. You might as well play something for me." I picked up the bass, played a couple of things. He's like, "Yeah, okay, cool." Well, and that was it. I went back home. Oh, sorry, I take it back. Before I went home, we drove to this music store where Troy was working, and I met Troy there because John introduced me. He's like, "Hey, it's going to be the new bass player guy." And Troy was real cool, real quiet, and he's like, "Hey, it was nice to meet you," And that was it. And then I went home and then started sending me the set list and other songs to learn. And, we're going to meet back here in Indianapolis to start playing for, I think the first show I ever did was Chicago Power Fest. So it just took off from there. I was like, my head was spinning, like, what do I do first? I'd never done something this big before. So that's how it started.
You were in the picture for the Crucible album, but you didn't. Did you actually play on that at all, or just the touring band?
Yeah, it was touring band. The Framing and the Crucible Man had both been recorded basically at the same time. So Dennis Hayes, previous bass player, already laid down everything. But we ended up doing a photo shoot with Ross Halfin summer 2008 off in Slovenia, when we were on our Europe tour. The photos came out great. So John decided to stick that photo in there. And then he put very specifically at the bottom, a touring lineup in the album sleeve. But so it's kind of funny because the first album my picture's on, I didn't play on. The second album I played on, my picture's not on. So it's kind of hilarious.
Now, that would lead to Dystopia. But prior to that, you were quite fortunate to be there for Matt Barlow's last show at Vuckham, and it was I've watched it numerous times. It's a very I always call that an end of an era because Matt is still to me so integral to the band's success. As much as John obviously is the workhorse, but I think Matt is probably one of the longest running singers of Iced Earth. And how was preparation for that final show with Matt? Was it kind of big to you as it was to like the fandom, or?
Probably not as big to me because I knew I'd be seeing Matt again. It wasn't like I'm never going to see this guy again. It's like, see in a few weeks, dude, or something. Because at that time I was living in New Hampshire, so I was closer to Delaware where Matt was, and we'd already been talking about things at the time. So I knew when we were done on stage at Vakken, it wasn't a goodbye for me. It was like, all right, well, I'll see you in a couple months. But there was no, for that show, I would say there's no real preparation for that show because we'd already been doing a lot of shows that summer. So we just treated it like any other one beforehand. I did a custom shirt made, as you probably saw. That was
Matt
about the only preparation.
Barlow.
Yeah, exactly. So from a band standpoint, it was just go out and do your thing, make it the best show you can, like every show was. But at the end, it was kind of like, man, we're not. My thought was, I'm not going to be jamming on stage with Matt in Iced Earth anymore. But that's as far as it went with me,
So that actual period of the band is quite an interesting thing because me and Chuck have spoke about it, where Stu had already been hired for Iced Earth at that point. So technically the band had 2 singers if you think of it that way. Because as far as I'm aware, the band still had festival contractual obligations to fulfill with Matt, right? Is that how it worked?
Yeah, I mean, and here's where it gets into how much do you want me to fill you in on things? You want the quick version to speed along the podcast, or do you want the nitty gritty of everything? It's up to you guys.
We love the nitty gritty here.
I mean, there's nothing bad about it. I'm just saying there's a longer version, the director's cut. So the 70,000 tons of metal cruise that we did in 2011. John had kind of made the decision that the band had to tour a lot more because the music industry was changing, and bands had to be out on the road to be making money like never before. When Matt rejoined the band at the same time I had joined the band, there was an agreement that, Matt's going to stay a police officer. He has a certain schedule that he has to work. He made this all up front to John, and John agreed, hey, we'll make it work for your schedule, no problem. So that's why Matt agreed to come back. Once, John realized, man, I got to do a lot more shows than we have been. And fair enough, because you got to do what you got to do. We had played one set already on the cruise. You're supposed to do two throughout a couple of days. Before the next set, John sat me down. He's like, hey, we're going to have to do something about Matt. And not in a bad way. This wasn't a bad way. He was saying, the band needs to play a lot more. Matt can't do it. And I'm like, yeah, I understand, So he said, I've got some people in mind. I go, okay, who? He said, well, what do you think of Stu Block? I go, the guy from Into Eternity? Because we'd done a tour in the States where Into Eternity had opened up. So I met a few of those guys. I think I didn't talk to Stu too much because, he was a singer. He wasn't really talking to people. He was probably resting his voice up or something. But so I remember Stu. I go, the guy from Into Eternity? He's like, yeah. I go, huh. And the only reason I've told Stu this too, the only reason I didn't think at that moment that it was a no-brainer was because I'd only seen Stu doing his scream vocals and death metal stuff and with Into Eternity, and I'm like, I was trying to picture that in Iced Earth going, how's that going to work? Plus, Stu was kind of goofing with the guy they had on tour who was like a hired gun for the Into Eternity tour. And every show he would go and turn off or mute the guy's guitar pedal while he's playing a solo in front of the crowd and being goofy. And it's fun stuff for them to do on stage. But I'm like, I don't know if that's going to work with Iced Earth if he's going to go around, turning people's knobs and, shutting the sound off as a joke. I said, but okay. But that's the only reason Stu didn't click with me at first, because that was my frame of reference. So anyway, we started talking more. And I said, well, you got to do what you got to do. It's your band. If you think that's the right direction, to do it. So he ended up telling Matt later. I mean, I kind of knew before Matt knew that Matt was going to be on his way out. So he told Matt later on the cruise. And then fast forward to the summer festivals. We were out doing shows with Matt while Stu was in Canada learning the material for Dystopia. I'd already heard all the demos and stuff. And after our lock-in show, the rest of the band, besides Matt went home. We all went back to, I forget what town in Germany, but we stayed at this hotel for about a week, and we were going and rehearsing Dystopia material for the recording coming up. So all of us but Stu, me, Troy, Brent, and John were going and rehearsing in the studio in Germany, so that a month later when we flew back home, we were going to go and record the actual CD at Morrisound. So yeah, there's a lot going on with Matt and Stu at the same time. Their paths never crossed at the time, but I'm playing Iced Earth stuff at a show, then I'm going back and listening to the new album, trying to get those in my head all at the same time. So it was an interesting period. It was fun though.
And then that would lead to, in my opinion, the band releasing probably, it's my second favourite album by the band, one of their best albums I've ever put out, which is Dystopia. Cool. And I've always said, I think since then, from that period, when Stu joined, I think the band has been completely non-stop, on fire, have been incredible, non-stop. Oh, so yeah. You toured your arse off for Dystopia, there's no doubt in that. How was it going on, like a full-on, almost 2-year tour? How was that for you?
Well, it wasn't that long for me, because I did 2 tours with Dystopia. I mean, the first time I was gone for 2 months. The second time was 2.5 or 3 or something like that. But so I did a full European tour and then a full, you've seen the tour date. So, so I wasn't gone for 2 years with them, but it was it was fun, and it was a trying time too. There was a lot of things going on that I was kind of like, oh boy, yeah. Um, and it's not hard to talk about. It's just I don't, if something has to do with me, I'll tell you anything you want to know. But when it's got something to do with somebody else and the way they are, I just don't like to freely give up that information because it's kind of like that's their deal, And the way I treat it,
I respect
kind of
that.
like, yeah, it's like my family's having issues and somebody in my family's going through something. I don't blab that out to everybody either, But prior to the Dystopia tour, I was kind of, there were times when I'm thinking, well, Matt's last show is Wacken. I might make that my last show too. Even back then I was living, my biggest teenage dream. And so I was happy in all that respect, but there were other things that I'm like, I've been there, done that now. So actually when I went back after the recording of Dystopia and all that, and went back home for a few months, I was working at an engineering company. And before the Dystopia tour started, I had gone to one of my bosses, and I had it in my mind, that I wasn't being paid what I thought I should for the work I was doing. So in my mind, I said, I'm just going to ask them for this raise of what I think I should be making. If they come back with it, then I'm going to tell John, I'm done. I'm not doing this. If they come back with anything less, then I'm going to go forward and quit that job and just go on touring. They came back about halfway for what I was asking for. So that was a pivotal moment. If they had given me what I wanted in the job, I wouldn't have been on that tour in the first place. So there we are.
So on the Dystopia timeline, where at this point, do you guys have the Ashes of Ares title out, or are you guys starting to kind of combine your efforts kind of on the side at this point?
No, nothing really happened during the Iced Earth. I wasn't working at one job and making money on the side of another. Not that's how it would be, but I wasn't doing that. Matt and I had talked several times, because he knew he was going to be out of the band at some point, even before he was told. And I told him, law of averages says I won't be in the band forever. So, we started talking. Oh, maybe, yeah, if we're both free, why don't we do something? We're like, okay. So actually, after the first European Dystopia tour I did, it was a couple months, I'd always be checking in with Matt and, telling him how things are going. He was like, wow. So I came home for about a month, and, Christmas, New Year's, all that kind of stuff before the North American leg was going to start. I went out, I think 2 weeks before the next tour started. I went to Matt's, and we kind of said, we weren't going to force anything, but we said we'll get together, we'll throw out some ideas. If we think they sound great, maybe we'll take it off from there. If we throw together some ideas and it just doesn't work, then hey, we tried. So I went out there, and like I said, we weren't saying we have to make something work. We're just throwing out ideas, and somehow I left there that weekend with the beginnings of our song "This Is My Hell" pretty much already all written. It was pieces that he had, pieces that I had. We kind of blended them together. We're like, wow, that's going to sound pretty cool. And so, at that point, we decided we were going to do this. And I kind of told him, this might be my last tour. I'll let you know how it goes. And so while I was on the road, Matt would be sending me, snippets of "This Is My Hell" with his vocals over it. And I'm listening to it in the bus or whatever. I'm like, wow, this is cool. So I was pretty excited for it. And then when I eventually left, we got together and kind of went full bore at it.
Now, before you left, had there already been talk of the Live and Ancient Curion CD, or was that after you had left?
Kind of, because the last show in Europe I did with Iced Earth was in Cyprus, where Ancient Curion was filmed. It wasn't at that site; it was a different venue, and we were there, and the place was awesome. And John, I think it said after the show, while that crowd was amazing, it'd be cool to do a live album here. He just said that's about all he said. I don't think we even knew about the ancient Curian place, or maybe he did because he's the historian. But that's all he mentioned. Said it would be really cool to do a live album here. And so once I found out later they were doing it, I'm like, yeah, no surprise. It was a great crowd, So yeah, the seeds were planted a long time ago.
So you were talking about like you were having thoughts about not being in Iced Earth much longer. What kind of like what kind of things kind of led to you really deciding, yep, this is it for me. I'm done with being in Iced Earth.
Well, there's just some things going on behind the scenes where it's like, I'm there to play bass and be the best representative of this band I can, give it my all in every facet of the band. There's other things you don't sign up for, and there's nothing. I gotta say, there's nothing directed at me. There's nothing blah blah blah. But there were other things I saw going on. It didn't sit well with me, and whereas I'm lucky that I have a career that I can go fall back on anytime I need to. There's some people that they don't have that gig. They're going to go home and scrounge around for a job. That's their lifeline. So maybe some people aren't as eager to speak up about certain things as I was. So like I said, there's nothing nefarious going on here. It's just kind of, there are things going on where I would make it known that this isn't cool, And there was a point where management got involved. I didn't go crying to management, but they were asking me, hey, what's going on? I noticed blah, blah, blah. And I would explain it. They're like, okay, well, we're going to make sure that doesn't happen anymore. And eventually it did. And I just, it's one thing when, you're having fun, you're partying, all that stuff. It's another thing when things go beyond the level where it's, people are getting hurt, or you're playing the janitor, or you're staying up all night to babysit everybody and make sure nobody gets hurt, make sure nobody falls over and hurts themselves, I just got kind of tired of every single night, because there was one night where I found out something happened after I woke up in the morning, and I felt guilty that I wasn't there to step in. And so from that night on, I just stayed up, made sure I was the last one in bed every single night, because, certain people needed to be watched out for, and I took on that responsibility. I know I'm being vague as hell here, but it's one of those things, like I said, I have no malice, no bad feelings about anything now, but it's kind of an internal thing. You don't want to air your dirty laundry or someone else's. Sure.
Well, whatever it may be, obviously you're keeping vague for a reason, and we respect that.
Yeah.
Whatever it may be, like the fact that you're looking out, whoever it may be, your bandmates, whoever it is, management, the crew, whatever it is, whoever you're looking out for, much respect for you, man, because that's a good thing to do.
Thanks, man. But
you definitely left your imprint in the band. That was such a cool time, with Matt coming back and just the revised energy when Stu came aboard. You were there at a really, really cool time, and people haven't forgot you. You definitely left a big imprint on people.
Yeah, it was cool. It was a great time. I mean, when Traded for the World, it was, as far as metal goes, or as far as life goes, that was, the 4 years I was in was the best 4-year degree I could have gotten. John Schaefer University, man. I learned so much about not only the music business, but the world. I mean, I think I got a better, well-rounded education there than all the times I went to college and never finished. So, it did nothing but help me as a person in general.
I tell you what, man, like the Dystopia lineup include with you a part of that first Europe tour. That's gonna mean the most to me, more than a lot of things in my life, because it was my first Iced Earth show. Was a Dystopia tour in London, Islington, like we said off there before. And yeah, that show kicked my ass. I loved every second of it. I was at the front. I waited 11 years to see the band live, and you was in that lineup, man. And I always have a thing where it's just like, because Iced Earth are notorious for just changing lineups all the time.
Yeah.
But like that Dystopia lineup of yourself, Troy, Brent, John, Stu, I'm just like, after that show, I'm just like, I don't want this lineup to change. It has changed, but
It has changed.
that lineup has a really, really big special meaning in my life because, yeah, that album and that tour cycle, everything, I just love everything about it. It's just a big moment in my life, and I got to meet you afterwards. It was all good, like VIP and stuff. It was cool.
That's great, man. I'm glad you had a great time. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the lineup changed. The lineup has always have, but you know, to be fair to John never wants the lineup to change. So it's not like he's going, it's Tuesday, I better kick somebody out of the band. You know,
I made a joke. Some people might have thought it was in bad taste, but last year they released their T-shirt called Brothers, and it was a T-shirt of all the current lineup, like Brent, everybody. And I just commented saying, "How long until this T-shirt is out of date?" Like, I don't mean it to be horrible. The current lineup are killing it, in my opinion. But like, it's true because the band is so notorious for people leaving that is a waiting game. Like, I hope the current lineup stays until John is ready to call it a day with the band. But history tells us that might not be the case. You know, it's a shame.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's, you know, with things that have happened, at least from what I know before I joined, people that have left or gotten kicked out, that was all on them. You know, if they weren't doing their job in the band, weren't learning the material the way they were, or started pulling some unreasonable attitude, they had to go. I mean, any band wouldn't deal with that. So
it's like any employment, right? You know,
exactly.
If I turn up to work 4 hours late and just stood around not doing my job, they're too right. They're gonna fucking fire me, ass. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I mean, John's the boss, so what he says goes. And when I joined the band, I knew that I had no problem with it. I'm like, that's the man. He tells me jump. I ask how high. I mean, he's the boss. So
how high did you jump? That's the question.
Well, with my stage boots on, not very, but you know, it's just he doesn't want people leaving the band. He doesn't want to get rid of it. It happens. That's just the cat. You know, it's just how it goes. With anything else.
Yeah.
And like, there's nothing to say. There's nothing against anybody that has been in the band. I sort of have had a slew of just immense talent come in and out as well. Like, you know, Matt Barlow, for example, is my favorite singer of all time. I think, you know, Matt, his vocals are just. I said this on his when we spoke to him about We Are Sentinels. I said to him that his vocals can pretty much work in any avenue of music because he's got such a diverse vocal. So yeah, the talent on display that have been within iSturf's history is immense.
Oh yeah, and there will be in the future too. I mean, you've got a great group of guys, and you know, if this lineup changes, you can bet the next person's going to be an amazing talent also.
Now, after your departure, the next studio album was Plagues, and then Incorruptible after that. Have you listened to those, or does that really not interest you?
I think Plagues, I might have heard a couple of songs. And then, what's the next one called?
Incorruptible.
Yeah. The only reason I listened to it is because somebody sent me a song and said it sounded like Loverboy. I'm like, what? And so I listened to it, like, oh, wait. It does.
Yeah. But I asked.
So you guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
we talked to John about that last month.
We asked the hard questions because like the fandom was like losing their mind, going, John Schaefer's ripped off this band, blah blah blah. And I had to be the one that, you know, we had John on like just before Christmas, and I had to be the guy that was just like, yeah, that the Veil song, you know, it kind of sounds like this Loverboy tune. He's just like, yeah, I know, but it's not a rip off and stuff like this. But
yeah,
I was terrified to ask that question because it's like John Schaefer, like, how dare you accuse me of ripping it off? Oh, don't shoot me. Yeah.
I think it's the only song I heard off that album. I don't know. Especially Right in Ashes stuff, I really kind of block everything else out because I want what my ideas are in my head to come out my way and not accidentally influenced by anything else, you know?
So,
well, I think it's a perfect time
Ashes of Aries.
to start talking about Ashes. Yes, the debut album.
The first album, man. Like, I got one word for that first album: Punishment. What a tune!
Yeah.
Love
Thanks,
it.
man.
Love it.
Yeah, can you tell me about the guitars and Punishment? Because every time, that's not just one of my favorite Ashes songs. It's one of my favorite songs of all time. Can you tell me
Wow.
about the guitars and everything on that?
Yeah, that one's on a 7-string, and we tune down a half a step, which it happens to be Iced Earth's tuning also, but I call it Slayer tuning because Slayer tunes that way, and I've always kind of my death metal band we tune the same way, so I just like that tone. So it's on a 7-string, tuned down a half step. The beginning riff is a clean channel guitar. A lot of people think it's a bass, but the opening it's actually guitar, and then it comes up with the heavy stuff. Jeff Loomis does a guest solo on it, because obviously him and Van have a history, and we needed a solo at the very last second. He heard this. We were in the studio at Morris Sound because our other guy Gio, that was he'd done a guest solo on Chalice of Man. He was going to do a solo for Punishment, and at the time it just didn't come out right. So at like the 11th hour, Van makes a call to Jeff. The next morning, he sends us what's on the record. So, and it's a bitch to duplicate live. I don't play it the way it's supposed to be played, but he's Jeff Loomis and I'm not. So there you go.
Right. Do you have a favorite track from the first album?
It changes a lot. Probably either on Warrior's Wings or the One-Eyed King, just because there's more variation going on in those. On Warrior's Wings, because it's kind of like a sentimental song, but
Right.
probably those two. But I like them all.
Each one is your babies, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
There's some that behave less nicely than others, but you love them all.
Now, with that first album, you done a bit of a European tour, correct? I know you came to London, supporting Powerwolf. How many dates did you tour for that album?
Sorry, repeat that. It kind of cut out.
How long was your touring schedule for that first record?
The European tour we did was only about 10 shows, I think, and that was something our label at the time, Nuclear Blast, had set up. Because we went out with Battle Beast, and they were on there also.
Fucking love Battle Beast. What a band.
Yeah, we had no idea. It's one of those things. They're like, you want it? Okay, we're gonna put you on this tour with Powerwolf, Battle Beast, and Majesty. And our first was like, who? We hadn't heard of any of these guys. We're like, okay. And then come to find out, Powerwolf's this massive European, theatrical band that selling out shows. We're like, wow.
Between you and me, that London show, right? I only went because it was Ashes of Eros and Battle Beast. When I think you opened and then Battle Beast followed you. I can't remember which way round it was, but I didn't stay for Powerwolf. I couldn't give two F's about Powerwolf. I went home afterwards. I was like, well, I've had my fill of metal today. Great, let's go home. So yeah, I literally went to that show for you guys and Battle Beast, and it was amazing. I loved it.
Yeah, it was fun. We made we still talk to those, all those people in those bands still. They're all good people. So we did like 10 shows for that. And then off and on in the States, we would do, a few shows here, a few shows there, whenever our schedules work. So it's sporadic, but we did all we could at the time.
Now, how has it been like, doing music on the side as well as your full-time jobs? How have you made it work? Because it sounds like it could be a bit. Obviously, this new album's taken 5 years to kind of show the light of day. So it's a long time between albums. So how have you kind of juggled it?
For me, it's easy. I'm basically a 9-to-5er. Go in the office at 8 or whatever. But if I need to take a phone call or do something during the middle of the day, I do it. My job's flexible enough where they know what's going on. But when I get home, lately I've been coming home, plugging in the guitar for 2 hours a night, and relearning my own stuff, so that when we hit the road, I'm sharp. But yeah, you fill up every bit of free time you can with it. That's how it works, Weekends, nights, whatever it takes to get it done, get done.
Do you miss I don't know, 5 shows a night kind of thing with what you used to do with Iced Earth kind of thing, like the constant shows?
I wouldn't say I miss it. I mean, they were fun. They were fun times. I'm actually, once we hit this new cycle with this record, I'm actually happier the way things are now overall because, you know, yeah, with Iced Earth, I've gotten to do the tour, the night after night. I've gotten to do that. Now we can pick where we want to play, when we want to play. We can do everything on our terms. It's not like, oh, we just shoved you into this at the last minute. You got to go do this show. You know, not that I was coming from John, but I'm saying like management or whoever would be like, hey, we got, you know, you guys got to go do this stuff now. And it was like, oh, really? No, we can do what we want. We can choose to do something or we don't have it. It's not, we're not relying on it to put food on the table. Right. So it gives us a lot of freedom and it feels really good.
That's cool, man. It's, I've always said to myself, because I'm in my own band and I'm just like, you know, oh yeah, because we want to kind of like we want to think about, you know, mini touring around the UK and stuff, maybe going up into Scotland and stuff like that. And it's just like, you know, I'm thinking to myself like, oh, can I really hack, you know, the constant on the road thing? And some people can't hack it, right? Is that sometimes, you know, you've built for it or you're not kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, it just, you know, I was always fine, you know.
Yeah.
Never bothered me, you know. After 3 days of not showering, you're like, yeah, I need to rinse off when I can. You know, if you can deal with that kind of stuff, it's fine. You know, just don't. I think a lot of people see like Motley Crue or Iron Maiden, these bigger bands, and they think that's what it's like. It's not, you know. They're Motley Crue and Iron Maiden. Iced Earth, as big as they are in the metal world, you know, they're not taking private jets around and stuff. But, you know, the accommodations are still great. You know, we had nice, clean buses. We had hotels on our days off. All our needs are met. So if you're looking at that in one way, but in the reality, local bands, smaller bands, you're going to have a van and a trailer if you're lucky. And maybe you're going to be able to afford to bring a crew member because you're going to have a buddy that just wants to hit the road with you and he'll take cheeseburgers and beer as payment. You can do that, then you're ahead of the game. But, you know, doing that night after night after night after night, it would suck. But it's how bad do you want the payoff to all the work you're putting in? That's what you got to ask yourself.
Yeah, but sometimes it doesn't pay off. I've heard horror stories that it doesn't.
Oh, no. Yeah. It doesn't always, but
it's a gamble, right?
Are you willing to take the risk? Do you want it bad enough that you're willing to do all this and maybe not have it pay off? You know, you got to go do it for the experience more than the reward, I guess. Look at it that way.
Or what the industry likes to do now is just like, oh, play at this place for free for exposure.
Yeah.
That's what my band does because we haven't really built a big enough following to really to have the gall to ask for money. We're just like, yeah, just play, get our music heard, fuck it. Like that's the way we look at it.
Yeah.
But if
like an internship.
If we get paid at the end, like say sometimes we'll play a show and then the promoter will be like, oh, also we made this much, here's your cut. Great. Awesome. £50. Yeah. Like, you know what, that's a 50? Oh, great. That'll go into like petrol and stuff. Great. You know, it's cool. Well, where was I going with that point? I forgot my point. Anyway, we'll move on. So you've done a little bit of touring with the first album. Did you immediately jump into writing Weather Souls from that point?
Yeah, pretty much. A lot of these songs are 4+ years old. Because we had this. A lot of these songs already demoed up. I would say, let's see, probably 3.5 years ago. We had all these songs, not all of them. We had about half the album as demo versions, ready to go. You know, send it to our management and all this, and then it was just Van's wife. You know, you guys probably already know this, but his wife got diagnosed with cancer in 2014. So as soon as we heard that, me and Matt were like, hey, band's on hold. You got to you take care of that girl, and we were fine with it because if it would have happened to any one of us, it would have been the same thing. So it wasn't like, oh, she got cancer, the band's on hold. It wasn't that attitude at all. It was like, dude, you take, because we're all still family. We love each other. So we said, you take care, you do got to do. You need anything from us, you let us know. So she went through it. She's doing great now. So she beat it, which is awesome news.
That's great.
And Van became a different person after that. And we're like, yeah, we understand. I don't think we would be the same having to go through that roller coaster of ups and downs, scared shitless one day, happy the next day, vice versa. And so he started Ghost Ship Octavius with one of the guys in Armageddon or something he was in, because they would be able to play a lot more than Ashes would, because they would have the flexibility to play as much as they wanted. But we were cool. They were like, fine, can we let us know when we can start working on our record again? And it took a while. And then at one point, Van just had a lot more time invested in Ghost Ship. And we're not we're not mad about it. It was just, we understood he was in a different frame of mind at this point. And we were trying to be very understanding, but at some point we said, hey, we got to move Ashes of Aries forward. We understand what's going on. Can you do that? And he kind of said, I just can't. He's like, hope you guys understand. And it was all amicable. It all worked out. We're all still good friends. We just kind of had to draw a line in the sand and say, hey, we get it. You got to go do that. We'll go do this. It's all good. And so once that happened, me and Matt refocused, regrouped, and the wheels are in motion, and now we're done.
So
at what point did you know that you weren't going to be on Nuclear Blast for the second album?
We only had a one album deal with them, and it was every even our deal now with Roar, it's a one album with an option to pick you up for the second one. That's all it was. So it was never it wasn't like put two albums out after the first one came out. No, we're dropping them. We only had a one album deal with Nuclear Blast. So, and they didn't pick us up for the second, which is fine. So, it was just, that's just how it works.
Cool. What I was going to say. I forgot what I was going to say. Damn it. Chuck, help me. Something. I forgot my
I don't know what you. For the intro, can you tell us about how you came about having Jonah do the intro for the new album? Very Sentinel sounding.
Yeah, well, it would be. It was actually the intro for that first song, which I wrote a long time ago as a death metal song. And so I have an old version of me, growling over it from years and years. This was before I started. This was written. And I'm no keyboard player, but I had a little keyboard intro with just, it was basically mimicking the notes the guitar would play later. So I kept that. And then when it came time to do this album, Matt had said something like, we could get Jonah if we wanted to do anything keyboards in the album. I'm like, huh. I go, well, why don't we, we said, why don't we have him, enhance what I have here and really do it up and make it thematic. And so we sent him that old version I had, and he took basically what I had think about as a pencil drawing and made this huge, awesome, Mona Lisa or whatever, out of it. And really made it huge. And the first couple of versions he sent was like, yeah, these are awesome, but the song is kind of like about Hawaiian warriors and how brutal things were back in that day. I said, can you make it sound a little more Hawaiian? And then he's like, I don't know what that means. He was like, it was kind of funny. Like, I don't know how to make it sound more Hawaiian. And so I sent him some different things of different Hawaiian sound, chants and all this kind of stuff. And then he added all this, Hawaiian tribal kind of stuff in there. And it came out really great. It was kind of exactly what I was picturing in my head. If I were talented enough to do that, that's how I'd make it sound.
Great. When you were starting to record the second album, was there anything that you wanted to do separate or different from the first album, or was there anything that you wanted to kind of do the same as the debut?
Yes and no. I've always been a fan of faster, heavier music in general. So while I liked the first album, first album was a little out of my comfort zone because I had to scale back how I would normally write stuff, tone it down a little, So I definitely wanted the second one to be heavier, faster, more dark. Not only the sound of the guitars, but the material, subject matter. So I kind of pitched that to Matt, and I felt more myself on the second album because I could write a little more dirty, a little more technical music, a little more heavy. The first album, some of people always have good things and bad things to say. First album, people are like, well, there's a lot of ballads on that album. Well, there aren't on the second. There's one or two, but I think the second one, it's definitely, the aggression is 10 times more than there was on the first. The tempos of the songs are faster. Everything, it's just a more mean album. And I like it that way.
The guitars are a lot more crunchier, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. How does it feel like as an artist to because I'm a big vinyl guy, so how does it feel to get your records on vinyl and stuff, and looking at them going, I made this kind of thing?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, I think just yesterday I got our personal shipments from the record label of our vinyl. We got the standard black and the splatter. We got them around here somewhere, but we got a whole box of these babies, and opened it up, look at it. I'm like, wow, this looks pretty cool. And then, give yourself a little pat on the back. You're like, attaboy. It's okay to be proud of yourself once in a while, but it's not vanity. But it's cool to look at, and then you think about how much work went into that. And now I'm like, all right, let's get the next one going. Got those 2 records there. Let's put a third one there, so a fourth one there. Now my wheels are spinning for the next one.
No, I have a question. I don't know if this is an easy answer to the question. When we spoke to Matt for the first time, he did mention that you had at that point, I think it was just after Christmas 2017. He spoke to us about how you had the whole of the second album kind of demoed, and you were saying that the demo was exceptionally great. He was really happy with the demo, and you sort of could have released it the way it was because it was a really good demo. Was there much changed from the demo sessions to the actual kind of mastered, kind of finished product?
Not really, except for the drums, only slightly. The demo we had, we basically did on our own. I played a little bit of drums, but I'm not good enough to record something. So I programmed all the drums for the demo purposes only, all the little fills, and I try to think like a drummer. I've heard demos where Jason, I've heard a demo where you hear a hi-hat, a crash, a china, and a splash at the same time. Like, fucking octopus playing this thing, because that is impossible. They hit 4 cymbals at once. So, I've heard a lot of people just throw shit everywhere. So I thought like a drummer, okay, well, if my hand's here on this side of the kit, I can't be here at the same time. So I try to make it as authentic as possible drum-wise. So on the guitar and bass tracks also, I recorded we'll call a clean DI, direct input track, and a dirty track at the same time. So in other words, you got your distorted track coming out, which you can, it just sounds like you're plugging into an amp. You got your clean DI track, which, let's just say you plugged into an amp, but didn't turn your distortion on. That's the sound you would do. So I had those recorded at the same time. So what I'm getting at is I had the final rhythm tracks done at the time the demo was. For our finished version, we took those clean DI tracks I had already done, took them to the studio, ran them again through an amplifier, and recorded those tracks. So I didn't have to play those again, except for the solos I redid. So the solos and the drums are different, and the drums are different only because I gave Van all those demos, and he interpreted what I did and added a little Van here and there. So other than the demos are, and the song structures are exactly the same as they were back then.
Awesome.
I think you guys picked the absolute perfect cover song. Was that your ideas or Matt to cover You Know My Name?
I think I'd mentioned it to him, but it was both our idea, to actually put it down. Him and I are both huge James Bond fans. I have been all my life. And Casino Royale was actually my favorite James Bond movie, even though I grew up watching Roger Moore and all this. But, me being a fan of the darker style of stuff, when Casino Royale came out, James Bond is, he's not cracking the stupid one-liner jokes, and he's killing people and being this brutal-ass secret agent guy. I'm like, that's awesome. And then Chris Cornell has always been one of my favorite vocalists. I'm a Soundgarden fan, but just his unique style of voice, I've always loved it. And so when I first saw that movie and I heard that, that song come on when the movie starts, I'm like, wow, this is awesome. And then I just always loved the song. And I think a couple of years ago, I'd mentioned, man, we should do a cover of that song. And I think we just forgot about it. But then after Chris Cornell, hung himself, I approached Matt again. I'm like, you know what, man, maybe we should revisit this. And I just went ahead and I just recorded a demo version of it, of all the music. And I sent it to Matt. I go, take a listen, tell me what you think, if you want to go forward with this. And he's like, that's cool. He sent me back his vocals. I'm like, awesome, let's do this, So it's kind of fun. It's a bonus track, which to me means hopefully people will look at it as separate from the rest of the music. And that's how we present it, is like, here's our original music, here's our tribute to Chris Cornell and James Bond in general.
Nice.
Awesome. Chuck, shall we move on to community
Let's move on to
questions?
viewers. Yes.
Community questions. Prepare to be overwhelmed by the community of Podcasting Stone, Freddie.
Sounds good.
Right, let's kick this off. Let's waste no time. Andrew Edwards asks, Freddie,
Hi.
Freddie, what do you remember about the very first Australian shows Iced Earth performed?
Oh, it's my first time ever in Australia also. So I had a great time. The shows, specifically, I don't remember too much about the actual shows, other than bits and pieces of the venue. I think one of them had mirrors all over the place. But the time there, I got to go surfing 2 days in a row in Australia, which was a lot of fun. I saw a bat hanging outside somewhere during the day, stuff we don't normally see in the States. And the food is great. So I just had a great time in Australia. I'd love to go back there. The fans were awesome. I mean, one of the guys in the band, there was a band there, and they gave us all these. A guy gave us Vegemite, little koala things. I mean, anything cliche about Australia, they would give us these gift packages with all this stuff in there. It was hilarious. So, yeah, we had a really good time.
This one's from Sean Green. We've kind of touched on this already, but he's got quite a long one actually. But that's what she said. He
beat me to it.
He says, I've read a few interviews over the years since Freddie left the band, and he seems to either shy away from the topic of Iced Earth or not want to talk about the band altogether. In one interview, when asked if he would be interested in an Iced Earth / Ashes of Aries tour, he replied, I would not be interested at all. So I guess my question is, was Freddie's split from the band not amicable?
I don't know if it was amicable. I quit. I told John, it was actually in Australia. We had it was after our second show, went back to the hotel. We were supposed to go to China in a few days. And so the next day, I think I told John, like, hey, can I talk to you down in the lobby for a while? We went and had a chat, and I kind of sat him down and said, long story short, I'm quitting the band. He's like, okay, and he was like, and a lot of people speculate, that it was the tour schedule or I wasn't getting paid enough or anything. It was absolutely none of that. I told John exactly why it was. I didn't mince words. He understood, and we hugged, shook hands, hung out, and that was it. We went to do the next two shows in China, and I left. But no, it would amicable would be two people coming together and saying, I think it's best if we don't. I just flat out, the gig was mine to lose, and I just went out and said, I'm not doing this anymore. So simple as that.
Speaking about the possibility of an Iced Earth Ashes of Aries tour, by the way, many fans would want that.
Yeah, and the only reason I think, if we're on a festival and we're both playing the same day, great. If there's another huge band and we're both support for it, fine. I wouldn't feel comfortable in a situation where John's in control of the whole show, and that when the headliners, whatever the headliner is, that's their show. When you see Slayer is out with Anthrax and blah blah blah, if Slayer's headlining, Well, Anthrax and their whole crew have to do with Slayer. That's just how it is.
Anthrax is a better band. Sorry.
Well, you know what I mean. So it's just I don't want to be if they're doing a tour and we get to jump on for a show or two of that tour. Yeah, that's one thing. But I don't think I'd be happy if we're traveling the whole time with them under the thumb. I don't want that. I simply don't.
That's fair enough.
Fair
man.
enough.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, Adam Ortiz. We've already asked this question, but he's just saying the first time I saw Iced Earth, I shared an elevator with Freddie. Do you remember that, Freddie?
No, he doesn't.
Adam,
Turn the lights off, stop the elevator, try to kiss him. Hey, you tease Adam.
Don't encourage him. Don't encourage
Adam's
him.
a tease.
Adam Ortiz, we love you, brother.
Or T, get it? All right.
Bravo.
Right.
That's a good one.
Right.
Right. Charlie Espinosa asks, how do you guys demo/record the Ashes of Aries albums? Do you record at home and send them out to be mixed/mastered, or are they both done in the studio?
Yeah. Well, basically, like I said, I'll guitars and bass. I'll record them right here in this room. A dirty signal, a distorted signal, so I can hear it at home what the demo's gonna sound like, and an untouched virgin signal that somebody in a studio can rerun through an amplifier and record it properly. And it's the same as if you're standing there with a guitar playing through an amp. Instead of plugging it into the guitar, you plug it into the output of my computer. It makes the same noise. So the demos are all done that way. When we demoed this whole album to present it to our current label, we actually sent all our tracks to the studio that we ended up using to finalize it. But we sent them our demo tracks and had them professionally mix our demo. So at least all the songs would sound the same and sound good. So that's how it is. We do bulk of the work here. Van recorded all the drums at his house. He has a really nice setup, professional mics, all this stuff. And he sent his tracks to the studio. So we do as much as we can on our own, but we leave the actual final touches to the pros. We know our limits of what we can do and not. We let the professionals finish it off.
That's cool. Chuck, I'm leaving it up to you for the next batch of questions.
I have a few, and we have a couple from John Knowles and Jeff Colnut that the questions were so good we already covered them. So thank you for your questions. Steve Kane, buddy of mine, wants to know, will Ashes be doing a U.S. tour in 2019?
Yeah, we're already setting up some shows right now. And I'll give you a hint to where the shows are going to be. Like I said, we're doing things the way we want to do them. So if you live in an area of the country that's freezing and there's snow on the ground, we're not going to want to drive around in that, little gear in it. So we're not going to do those parts of the country this time of year. If that gives you any kind of hint.
Nice.
We'll hit you when it's nice and warm and I can wear shorts. So we're setting some stuff up. We'll be sure to let everybody know when the dates are confirmed and where.
Okay.
Will you be? Is there any? Just quick. Add to that question quickly. Is there any chance of a out of the US kind of shows?
Definitely. We've talked to our management is based in Germany, so we've been talking to them, and we've been talking to our label who's based in Greece about things coming up. So there are things in the works. I don't know exactly where because they kind of talk amongst themselves and then let us know. Whereas in the States, we kind of direct where we want to play. So things, even though we're not posting this, see, a lot of bands will just post diarrhea all the time just to have something on their page. Hey, we have an announcement coming up soon. Here's an announcement saying announcement's coming up. We don't like to do that. If we have something to tell you, we'll tell you. So as soon as we find something out, we'll let you know.
I don't. It seems to be like this new trend, here's an announcement for an announcement coming soon. It's like, how dumb is that?
Yeah, it's not. I mean, if it works for your band, fine, but it's just not our style.
We've done that, Jason. Anyway, moving on.
We have. That's ironic.
Saul
Montague asked, what Iced Earth bass line did you most enjoy playing?
Trying to think. There's a run in the Pure Evil where it's in the middle and it does the triplet patterns. You know, sometimes like that was a little fun one because it's kind of made me. Then also there is one where you can't hear it on the album, but I think it's called Days of Rage from Dystopia, where what's he singing in the middle, like lives destroy lives. They're shouting in the middle of something, but in the background, you know, I'm doing this cool little like bass tapping kind of thing. And so when I got to do it live on stage, it was always fun. It was a kind of fun little thing to play. But when I heard the album, I'm like, oh, you can't, you know, they kind of Jason Newsted did that part. You can't really hear it. But, yeah. But that was a fun one.
And Justice for No One.
Right. It was so awesome. There was like, people can't. He's outdoing us. We got to bury him.
Well, I mean, what really happened? You know, there's vocals going on, so that's the prominent part.
Yeah.
I understand why.
Yeah.
Oh.
I really enjoyed the bass on Damien on the Dystopia tour. That was my favorite version of Damien.
Yeah, that was a fun one too, and that was the only one I ever used a pick for because John's like, we're doing Damien, and I said, okay. And I said, it sounds like it's played with a pick on the album. He goes, oh, it was. I go, do you want me to use a pick or do you want me to use my fingers for it? He goes, no, I want you to use a pick. I said, okay, so I used a pick. So it's a fun one.
Interesting.
I love the way how you portray John. You're like, well, we're doing Damien. You make him sound so stern.
No, he wasn't like that.
He is like that. Don't lie. He is. We've spoke to him. He's like that.
No, not to me. Not to me. He wasn't. He was just sounding like that's He used to pick on Damien, so he wanted me to.
John's awesome. We love you, John. If you're watching this.
When you were in the band for Dystopia, did you try to sneak in any of your guitar work, or were you strictly just bass?
Well, it wasn't during Dystopia, but I think like about a year after I joined, I said to John, "Hey, you know, are you open to any other ideas?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm open to them, and if you got to understand that I have to agree with it 100% to use it." And I was like, yeah, fine, I understand, it's your band. So I came up with a whole bunch of stuff. I sent it to him, and about a month later, I asked what he thought. He goes, well, you know, I'm kind of looking for something else. He goes, those songs sound like stuff I could write. I'm like, and so I kind of said, okay. And I thought in the back of my head, well, I guess I nailed it then, you know. I guess I nailed the style if he didn't want to use it because it sounded too similar to stuff he could write. And I was like, okay. And so 2 of those songs ended up on our first Ashes of Aries album.
Nice. In your opinion, what is the best Iced Earth album?
I got to go with Horror Show.
Nice.
Because for me, it's a total package. It's a concept album with, you know, horror characters, which I just love, you know, and each song has a mood that fits the character that the song's about, and I just like it. I mean, there's a lot, you know, Glorious Burden I think is great, but you can't go wrong, you know. I know a lot of the guys now that are in the band, you know. As soon as I quit the band, James McDonough called me up, dude, what happened? Tell me, you know. So I keep in touch with a lot of people, you know. But Horror Show, I mean, Richard Christie's drums on it were great. You know, Steve DiGiorgio, who's one of my favorite bass players ever, recorded on there. You know, yeah, it's Horror Show. If I had to pick one.
He has a new project with Tim Owens now, Spirit of Fire.
Well, don't tell anybody, but we're actually going to fire Matt and get Tim in the band.
You know,
and then Matt will come back after that.
Exactly.
You know, we are. This goes out to like 50 million, 100 million people. It goes to aliens from another planet as well. So everyone will know this secret. So you're fucked. You're fucked. You shot yourself in the foot now. You're done. Yeah. Speaking of Tim Owens, man, like I'm upset because he seems to stretch himself way too thin, man. He's got about 50 million bands. Pick one and focus on one. He's a
go-getter, that kid.
Yeah, it's a shame because this is my opinion. I've said this before. I want your opinion, Freddie, afterwards. You don't have to. I'm gonna be like, as Tim Owens is an immense talent, incredible singer. That since he left Iced Earth has been singing on unremarkable music. That's my opinion on Tim Owens, unfortunately.
I agree with you. No, he's just Tim's such a nice guy, man. I love that guy to death. He's doing what he wants to do. Tim can do what he wants, and he's doing exactly what he wants to do. And he's always flying somewhere doing a show. I'm like, wow, look at him. He's busy. He's doing all this. I think it's great for him. He didn't have to do anything. He's doing a great job. And man, that last Charred Walls of the Damned album he put on, it's still, it's always in rotation in my spin. So I think the more he does, personally, I'm a fan of his. So the more he does, the more great stuff I'm going to have to listen to. So I hope he does more stuff than he's doing now.
That's fair enough, man. That's fair enough.
Now, I had mentioned, do you have anything cool to show us from your personal collection?
Yes and no. I mean, I looked through some stuff. I have little tour programs and posters from like China and all these things. But a lot of them, I started thinking like, this isn't going to be cool to anybody else. I don't think it's going to be like, I'm like, dude, look at this. And somebody's going to be, that's a poster. Cool. I have that in my room. I don't know if I have anything. The only thing I have that I thought was one of a kind that I couldn't find because it's probably in one of my boxes was I have a Dystopia, like, what do you call it, postcard with all the tour dates on it, with everybody's signature except for Stu's, but Matt's on it. So
that's awesome.
So I think I have the only Dystopia thing with Matt's signature on it, and the reason was, and this was at the last Wacken show, there were a couple of people I knew that wanted something signed by Matt, so I think I handed him a couple of Wacken postcards. And somehow one of these Dystopia postcards must have gotten into things I was throwing him. I didn't look, and he signed it. And he's like, I'm not even on this. I looked at him like, oh, sorry. But I have it somewhere. I'll show you guys when I find it. But
if you find it, send me a picture of it, and I'll put it on our Facebook page.
There was a similar thing. There's a similar thing with me. I was on the I was VIP on the Plagues of Babylon tour when they came to the UK, and the drummer that played on that record wasn't touring. Yeah. They had this guy called John Dunn, I think. I forget his full name, but
John Deddy.
Deddy, yeah. Yep. And
Slayer.
People thought I was being an asshole, right? Because I was like, right, I didn't even speak to the guy, right? Because I'm at this VIP, I just want to get my album signed by the people that are on it. And there's my friend going to me like, aren't you going to go and talk to the drummer? I'm like, no, he didn't play on the album. He goes, you're a fucking arsehole. I was like, what? Why should he sign the album? He doesn't play on it. Does that make sense? Am I being a dick? Or
you're not. I'm the same way. I mean, and when I would be doing the VIPs, I'm not on a lot of albums. So when people, and it would be hilarious too, I was kind of conscientious of that. Because if I'm sitting next to John or Matt or somebody, people are going down the line, they're talking to John, but they're just passing their CD down the line without looking. So I see that I'm not on the album, and I'm kind of just, I'm not on this, right? And they just go, oh, yeah, thanks, And take it away. But Chuck, I'm the same. I mean,
Chuck's got his copy of Something Wicked This Way Come with Brent Smedley's signature on it, and I'm just like, but Brent didn't play on that. Why did you do that, Chuck? Brent.
Because he's on the same reason why I had Freddie sign my Crucible, because he's in the Leonard book.
Oh yeah.
If you're in the artwork and you're in the to me that counts.
Fair
enough. That's a loophole, Chuck. You're right.
Fair enough.
But yeah, of course, if he's in the touring band, of course I'm going to have him sign it.
Fair enough. Best drummer in the world, by the way. How is it? How was it playing with Brent?
Great, man. I mean,
he's a machine.
It was a great time. I mean, he's a lovely guy. I love that guy to death. Him, Troy, and I spent a lot of time together while Matt and John were off doing interviews. And we made an internal joke that we were the Pips and they were Gladys Knight. It's like, ladies and gentlemen, Gladys Knight in the Pips. It's like, so they all, and so we, at this point, we're, every time we talked to each other, we're like, hey, Pips for life, because we were like the other people. And it was fine. It was a little joke, but we would always go off and, we share hotel rooms together. And yeah, we've lived many lifetimes together in a short time.
You joke about that, but that's part of the reason why we have this podcast, because the only voice you hear out there is usually John, Matt, and Stu. and there's so many other sides of the story that we wanted to hear. That's why, we had you and Troy and Brent.
And I'm fine with my, I know my role. I'm like, I was a bass player. Nobody's gonna talk to me. I don't care. I'm not there to stand in the spotlight. Just like with Ashes of Aries, like Matt does pretty much all the interviews. It's Chef Boyardee's on
not all of them.
Not the ravioli inside.
Go ahead, Jason.
Going back to that Viking show, the last show of Matt with Iced Earth. There's many times I've brought this up when me and Chuck have spoke about this, where we are both completely dumbfounded why Century Media didn't release the footage of that, because it was pro recorded. You can watch the whole thing on YouTube or whatever. And I'm just like, why didn't they release that as an end of an era DVD? I've got a bootleg of it because I have to own it physically somehow, because it's like, again, end of an era. How do you feel about that? Like, because it was all pro recorded.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what goes on behind the scenes with the contracts and the royalties, and did they want an ungodly amount of money to get the rights to it? Who knows? I don't know. It could be any reason.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't up to John's standards. Maybe he saw the whole thing and said, this isn't how a band represents. You never know. So yeah, it would have been nice if they released it, but if it wasn't released and it was up to John, I'm sure he has a great reason for not doing it. That's all I can tell you is if he does or doesn't do something, there's tons of thought behind it, and it's the right decision. That's all I can tell you.
Oh yeah, that's fair. But yeah, I've got an illegitimate copy, but I don't care, because look, at the end of the day, if I can't get something through official channels,
yeah,
then I'm gonna get it the opposite way. Do you know, does that make sense? I'm not a pirate by any means. I support bands like everyone. I buy vinyl, I buy CDs and whatever. I go to shows and buy merch. But if there's something that exists that I want physically that was never officially released, I'm gonna probably get a bootleg of it or something.
I mean, none of that stuff bothers me. I mean, I know how the world is today, and hey, it's how it goes. So don't worry about it.
I was talking to a friend. Sorry. Who's going first? Me or you? Okay. I want your opinion on this, because I was talking to a friend on Skype the other day, and we both have a similar opinion, where it's a bit of a contradictory opinion. Like, the two statements I'm going to say contradict each other, but I feel they contradict each other for the correct reasons, right? Okay, you filled in so far?
But go ahead.
God damn it. Right, I'm of the opinion that everyone should have access to music, because there's nothing more powerful in the entertainment medium as music. But on that note, I also think the artists should be paid for their work. Now, they contradict each other by those two statements. But how do you feel about that? Because music, I couldn't go day to day without music. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I agree. If the artist puts something out and there's a possibility that they could be paid for their work, yeah, definitely. It's all up to the artist, If an artist wants to go and just give their music away and they're fine with it, and like you said, exposure, they want to put out an album for free to get their name out there, fine. And on the other hand, okay, let's put it this way. If somebody doesn't buy, let's say we sell 10 albums in one city, but we go to a show and there's 100 people there because 90 of them downloaded it for free. Well, guess what? They're buying shirts. They're coming. They're supporting us. Okay, maybe they didn't buy the album like we want them to. Exactly, or buying me. But first of all, downloading for free, yeah, it's stealing all that. We don't want people to do it, but if they're gonna do it, go and support the band. Go to a show, buy the merch, help the band out in some way. That's how I look at it.
Now, speaking of that, am I correct in this is just me assuming? Obviously I don't know the ins and outs of of what's more lucrative, record sales, or kind of people going to shows and buying merch. Like, what is technically more lucrative for a band? Is it going to a show and spending
People going to
money
shows and buying merch.
Yeah. So the
Because
record sale doesn't matter too much then, essentially, because a lot of it goes to the label, right? Anyway, so.
Yeah, it just depends. I mean, our label gave us the money to record, so our record sales are going to pay that back, which is fine. That's a fair deal.
That makes sense.
So when we go out on the road, if a club pays us to perform, that's money in our pocket. If we pay to have T-shirts made and we sell them, for a few bucks more than we made them for, that's our profit. So that's the reason. That's another reason Iced Earth had to tour a lot more, because that's where the money is made, is out on the road.
Right.
Yeah.
Will you guys be doing a VIP package?
If we do, we won't charge anybody for it. I mean, we kind of did that in a goofy way on one of our U.S. stints. We said, hey, we're going to have VIP shows. How do you get VIP? Get to the venue early, and it's all it is. We never did like a meet and greet where, well, we did meet and greets, but we never said, hey, it's an extra $20 for. We just said, hey, get to here at this time. If you want to bring some stuff to sign or meet us, fine. And that's kind of how we see it going. We're not, like I said, we don't have to do this to make a living. Whereas other bands, their margins are so slim after they pay for, other band members, after they pay the crew, they pay the bus, they pay for hotels. Some of them have to charge extra for meet and greets just to make ends meet. We don't. So if we do a meet and greet, just show up, say hi, whatever,
Nice.
Real casual.
I respect that. That's cool. For the fans, right? It's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, we're no more special than anybody else, honestly. We're a little more visible, but that's it.
Nice.
Is it time to take us home, Chuck? Is it
Time to wrap it up? But everybody that's watching, don't forget to go to Ashes of Aries on Facebook. They got 2 awesome brand new shirts on there that look amazing, and buy their album. It's Well of Souls. The splattered vinyl is one of the most beautiful vinyls I've ever seen in my life. I don't have it yet.
I jumped on that pre-order so quick. It's unreal.
Cool.
So I got mine, and I'm really happy with it. It sounds great on vinyl. The vinyl sounds great. Yeah, everybody, like we keep pushing on this podcast. Physical media, man, support it. But as much as Spotify exists, bands get fuck all from Spotify. And who doesn't like looking at an awesome, gatefold and looks at the booklet and read the kind of liner notes? There's an experience that you can have with physical media you can't get digital, and I implore everybody to support physical media. So yeah, Ashes of Aries on Facebook, buy their T-shirts, buy their albums, support them, man, because it's great stuff. It's great heavy metal.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate that.
On that note, I have been Jason. I have been joined by, as always, by the incomparable Chuck Hoskins. We have been joined by the awesome, the very so awesome, Freddie Vidales. Freddie, thank you so much for coming on, man. It's been a blast. It means a lot to us.
Guys. Keep up the good work.
On that note, guys, we'll see you next time. Stay metal, because metal lives, my friends. See you later.